Welcome to Inside the Arena, your source for everything off the ice, off the court, and outside the field of play. With your hosts, KOMO Sports Director Niko Tamurian and KOMO Senior Reporter Chris Daniels. You've been listening to Inside the Arena with Niko.
18.
Wow. We can legally vote.
And people should vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Vote. Make your voice heard.
Inside and outside the arena.
Well, yeah.
You know, people probably are going to vote in places like Oakland and Las Vegas. Did you see this all in the last week? It just brought back a lot of Sonics memories.
Well, sure. And I'm actually going to touch on this in one of my four corners in a little bit. But it's so darn sad. And, you know, I was at the Mariners game Sunday, and I'll get deeper into this in the four corners, but there's a lot of Oakland fans there. And there's actually a couple folks holding up sell signs behind home plate. And for a second, I thought there were folks mad at the Mariners front office. Then I saw the shade of green that it wasn't Northwest green. It was Kelly green, or whatever you want to call it. And it was for the A's fans. And they've been through a lot that they don't deserve. And it's just a brutal situation. And I don't like that the other owners in Major League Baseball have just kind of let it happen. Right? Like, there had to be something that could be done there.
Yeah, wearing the green and gold, it brought back a lot of flashbacks to 2008.
Sure. Yeah.
And it is such an odd thing. As you know, I do this thing called Spotlight on America for our company, and I went to Oakland and talked about that whole deal. It is still weird to this day, and there's a question of whether Vegas will ever really put that together, if the owner, Fisher, will ever put that money together to actually for the team to move.
I'm skeptical. Honestly, why wouldn't you be at this point?
I think a lot of the national sports writers who follow baseball are also skeptical that's ever going to happen. But you know what? One thing that is going to happen.
What's that?
That's the World Cup in 2026.
Can't wait.
You like that transition?
Well done, sir.
There was big news here in the past week with the World Cup Organizing Committee. You were going to hear from Peter Tomozawa and Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell. Peter is a friend of the show now to this point. He's been on it before. He's going to talk about the latest and the big announcement at Seattle Center. That's going to be the host for the big World Cup party, the World's Fair, as it were, on the old World's Fair site. You will hear from him. We'll hear about the city's infrastructure, what this could mean for sound transit directly from the mayor. But you just hinted at it, what we do every week here on Inside the Arena. All right, we like to call it Four Corners. We touch them all, the good, the bad in the world of sports. Really, what's good and bad off the field, off the ice, off the court. Niko, what do you like this week?
Did you see me touch all four corners?
I did. It was awesome.
T-Mobile Park, last game of the season.
The whole stadium to yourself.
When does that happen?
Never.
And so the idea there was that when the Christmas event comes in, they're going to have to put a new field after for the next season. So the grounds crew is having a blast. They're like, come on out here. And I'm kind of like apprehensive because I'm like, you know, you can't step on the grass during the season. You can't do any of that, right? Yeah. And then it's almost like you step, oh my gosh, we can do this. Then right around the bases. Good time.
Yeah, they have signs up that say don't touch the field when you're there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so that's my four corners. No, I'm just kidding. What I want to talk about is, how about our city, huh?
There's a lot going on.
How about Seattle?
Yeah.
I mean, 2025 Club World Cup. And you don't I know we're going to dive deeper into all this in a moment, but you don't have to be a soccer expert to understand how cool it is that Chelsea, Man City, Real Madrid, you know, all these great, there's so many more. I'd be here all day listing them. All these great European powers are going to be in this tournament, potentially here in Seattle, potentially playing our Sounders, which is so amazing. But when I say how about our city, 2023 Major League Baseball All-Star Game, 2024 Winter Classic, 2025 Club World Cup, and of course 2026 FIFA, the real deal World Cup. And it's like, it's so amazing. And I think that some sports fans, I think they all love our teams, but they don't realize how lucky we are that we are in a place that is a world-class city and that is capable, but also seen in this light that, well, Seattle has to be the host of baseball's crown jewel event. It has to be the site of the NHL big-time event. It has to be one of the FIFA World Cup headquarters. And so I think that, you know, no city's perfect, but my goodness, I'd rather be in Seattle than just about anywhere else, and maybe anywhere else in general, because this is a sign of our city. It's just on the rise still, and I don't have to tell you that, but that was as excited as I am to cover the tournament itself, because I think it's going to be a really fun one.
Yeah.
Underrated. You have to really know soccer like you and I do. but it's a source of pride that we're seen in that way. And that was one of my favorite parts about it. Other than I can't wait to see the event, it's like, heck yeah, Seattle.
2 words, Beth Knox.
Yeah, oh, she's the best.
Who leads the Seattle Sports Commission. It's like recruiting big conventions.
Right.
If you're with the Tourism Bureau, if you're with Visit Seattle, which is the tourism arm of Seattle, she is recruiting these events. And she has been on a roll behind the scenes, reaching out to Major League Baseball, reaching out to the NHL about the Winter Classic, dealing with FIFA, not only for 2025, but for 2026, like you said. She is on a roll. She's been a friend of the program as well, and we'll be talking to her in the future because she does so much away from the field. I'll tell you what's positive this week. We've talked a lot about Pac-12 and college realignment, college sports realignment. And over the last few weeks, when we're recording, it almost seems like something is changing right after with the Pac-12 about who's in, who's out, who's going to take the deal. I think we talked about this on the show. Gonzaga to the Pac-12. This was the home run for keeping the Pac-12 together in their current form with those new schools and selling it on a national scale, right? The college realignment is all about TV markets, making sure that Washington State appeals to Spokane and Seattle. Oregon State appeals to Portland. Utah State appeals to the Salt Lake City market. You have Boise, Fresno, San Diego State for Southern California. That's what Gonzaga is all about when moving them to the Pac-12 or having them accept the invitation to the Pac-12 in every sport other than football. It's all about selling the TV package, as you know, and getting a large amount of money that can be distributed between these schools and keep them at the Division I level. Love it for Gonzaga. I will tell you that this could change by the time people hear this.
Sure.
And Washington State University Athletic Director Ann McCoy, I can tell you, was supposed to be in Seattle for at least one event next week, and she is no longer part of that event because I think
she's a little busy.
There are some deals to be done here in the next week or so. And speaking of all this, I know you saw this, Niko, the College Football Sports League. Did you see that idea get formally presented?
I don't have a problem with it, really. I think it could be, a way to let some of these group of 5 teams that are in a lot of cases vastly better than some of the power, whatever they're called, teams now.
Yeah,
let it be worked out. And speaking of European soccer earlier, it's kind of how they do it.
That promotion relegation thing. I think this is going to be a tough idea for some of these universities to swallow.
I don't think it'll catch on.
72 schools in a Power 12 conference, including Washington and Washington State. So it would put Washington State in a better position, at least initially. And then 64 schools in a group of 8 conference, including some of those new Pac-12 schools.
Yeah.
And you're ideally in football supposed to be promoted and relegated and all the money that goes into that. And we see in European soccer, if you get demoted, so to speak, or relegated, you lose millions of dollars. It's in this current structure, this Wild West that is college sports right now, it really seems like that would be tough for a lot of people to accept.
I think that would be a tough sell. And I will say one more thing on your Gonzaga point, the markets and everything, that's a big idea here, obviously, but you go to any of those TV networks and you say, if you buy us, you get to put this national brand that is Gonzaga basketball. I mean, that's like you said, home run. We're talking about, I'm going to estimate here, TV deals that are 15 to 20 million per school per year, which is not power level, but it's certainly not, it's much higher than Mountain West and whatnot levels that were, correct me if I'm wrong, somewhere $5 to $9 million per season.
Yeah, so look out for TBS, TNT, Warner Brothers Discovery, who's about to lose the NBA, likely, barring some sort of surprise, that is looking for content, looking for basketball content that may be entering the picture here.
I think that would be a good one. I don't want to go negative now, but I think
you can go negative. We have to round the bases.
Well, listen, I want to preface this by saying I genuinely, with all that I am, believe that Mariners fans are the most passionate and patient fan base in baseball, and they have every single right to be upset about missing the playoffs by one game again. There's nothing wrong with that. That's sports, and you can be upset by free agent signings not hitting. You can be upset that your team isn't signing Shohei Ohtani for $500 million, although that's not entirely reasonable. But you get where I'm going, Chris. Yeah. But what I didn't like about this is, first of all, I love that they had 42,000 on Sunday for a game that was on paper meaningless. That's what I mean by this is a passionate fan base with, in theory, nothing to play for. We saw players on other teams, including the San Francisco Giants, sitting out because they were saying, well, this is meaningless.
Yeah.
Mariners didn't do that. Okay, so that needs to preface it. What I didn't like, though, is I saw a lot of chatter on social media, boycott this series, boycott going to the game, show them, hit them in their wallet where it counts. You know, we talked about the Oakland A's earlier, and this is the reason why that didn't sit well with me. And you know better than me, because you were here at that time, that this city was dangerously close to losing the Mariners some 25 to 30 years ago. There's no guarantee they will never leave. What if you really want John Stanton to sell the team? I'm not saying he's the most perfect owner in all of baseball, but let's say he sells to a Clay Bennett 2.0.
Yeah.
And that wants to move the team to a baseball-rich market like Nashville or Charlotte, somewhere in the Southeast. And so that was my issue with the idea that I saw on social about folks wanting to boycott the team. Those players, they tried. They fell short. It's sports. Does the franchise have things to work on? Undoubtedly. This isn't to sugarcoat that. But it's to say we can see what's happening just a little bit down the coast in the Bay Area, and we should be fortunate that we've got a team. You can complain about what the team does. That's your right as somebody who buys tickets and roots that team on. But it could always be worse.
It can always be worse, and I think people remember the Jeff Smulyan era and potentially moving to Tampa and how the team was saved.
Right.
We've talked about it. We've chronicled it here on Inside the Arena. I would just push back a little bit in that they do have a long-term lease now, which was controversial at the time with King County. But this whole idea of what's going on with Root Sports is the great unknown now. And that's going to help me transition as we go home on this. The idea that the Kraken and the Blazers have both left Root Sports, that is a multi-million-dollar loss to the Mariners in terms of rights fees. And the Kraken now are going into this kind of area that it hasn't really been charted in more than 20 years, going back to linear television for their games. And the preseason is underway. The season is getting officially kicked off here very shortly. But the ratings on linear television have not been great for the Kraken, and it is part of the challenge here for that franchise as they go forward. And really before the Blazers even get started, just how this is going to work. We don't have ratings from Amazon. We don't know how many people are going to their streamer and going to their app on their television to watch the games over Amazon, but at least over linear television in Seattle, the ratings so far for preseason games have not been good, and they've been going up head-to-head with the Seahawks, which has not helped things as well. Well,
and that leads to another point that we are oftentimes talking about, the Sonics. We at least hope.
Oh, wait, that seems like a transition, Niko.
It was an unintended transition. You just wanted to hit that buzzer again.
I love that buzzer.
I do too. I hear it in my sleep. No, I was kidding. But as we chronicle, the Sonics are, we hope, likely coming back soon. That is one more fan base. That is one more one more competitor for the eyeballs of Seattle sports fans. And so, if the numbers on linear aren't very good right now, without the Sonics here, that's not the best situation.
And shameless plug, the Blazers out of Portland are blazing their trail.
Well played.
Hey, you're the one who brought it up first, right? Blazing the trail on linear television with our sister station, the CW, here in the fall in Seattle and also in Portland. So they're going to be playing the same game that the Kraken are right now, and I think everybody's going to be watching. Hey, let's talk about the SuperSonics. Every week we do it, a SuperSonic minute. Sometimes that minute lasts longer. This week, I think it's interesting as we continue to move forward towards an October 11th preseason game at Climate Pledge Arena involving the Blazers and involving the LA Clippers. There has been some idea that potentially we would see something launched in advance of that game to get people interested in bringing back the Sonics. The mood I'm feeling right now is that there has been a bit of a slowdown in this talk about expansion, right? We have laid this out over several weeks. The idea that the NBA would get their TV digital rights deal done and that they would turn to an expansion process. Adam Silver saying in September that they would address it this season, which is slightly different from saying they would address it this fall or right after their TV digital rights deal. The vibe I'm getting is that the NBA wants to see how the Celtics deal plays out. They are up for sale. And the Timberwolves deal out of Minnesota. Those couple of issues, along with the legal maneuvering by TBS, TNT / Warner Brothers with a court hearing in October, seems to be some variables. And we have couched this through this show that there are going to be variables in this situation. Those variables seem to have popped up now and potentially are slowing down the expansion process. But one thing that is not slowing down, every day ticks by, we get closer to 2026 and the World Cup. I know you're excited.
Yeah, you think I mentioned those events a minute ago? Think about the idea that I can't even imagine what Seattle's going to be like during that World Cup. I mean, it's just going to be the whole city buzzing, full of people from around the world.
Well, and here's the thing, that there's been big news in the last week about the plans for that event. Everybody knows there's going to be 6 matches at Lumen Field. The U.S. men's national team is going to be a part of that. That's a big win for Seattle. There has been some discussion, though, about where they'd put the Fan Fest. That's the other big piece, the kind of celebration, community celebration with thousands of people that would be flooding into or will be flooding into the city to watch these games. We're talking about a month long. Peter Tomozawa, who is the CEO of the organizing committee, has compared it to hosting 6 Super Bowls, just in terms of the eyeballs and the attention and the people coming to Seattle. You have 7 more up the road in Vancouver, 13 overall. It is going to be a month like no other. He has compared it to the World's Fair in 1962, and the announcement in this past week that the Fan Fest will be at Seattle Center. The host of the World's Fair in 1962 will have another World's Fair, and there's a lot of questions now that come up with that, and I had a chance to sit down with Peter, a friend of the show, about what this announcement means and where they go from here. So what are we talking about? It sounds like you have a big announcement in regards to the World Cup in 2026.
We do. Probably one of the bigger things that we'll be doing outside of actually hosting the 6 massive matches in the summer of 2026 is we're going to have a big fan celebration here in Seattle, and we have now selected a location. And we're going to be revealing that tomorrow. The mayor will be making a huge announcement, and we're super excited.
Where is it?
I knew you were going to ask me that, Chris. It is going to be at the Seattle Center. 1962 gave us the Seattle Center and the Space Needle, massively iconic location. One of the legacies that we're working for is a 1962 style legacy, and we thought, what's better than having it at where the World's Fair was? So the World Cup fan celebration for the city of Seattle will be located at the Seattle Center.
So what went into that decision-making process? Because I know we had talked a while back about doing this on the waterfront, which is going to be done in 2025.
Yeah, you know, it was we studied a lot of this, and a whole bunch of things came into play in terms of how we evaluated the waterfront. The waterfront's going to be beautiful. You know, the grand opening is in 2025. The coronation will still be in 2026. We looked at space constraints, size of location. We looked at security, quite frankly. But we really thought a lot about our mission, which is to maximize the community benefit for this World Cup coming here. And we thought, what is a better legacy to play off the legacy of 62 into 26? And that's why we ultimately chose that. I will guarantee we will be on the waterfront in some sort of activation, TBD. So stay tuned for that.
But in terms of a fan fest and the gathering place for 2026, what does that look like?
Yeah, so you know, basically, we're playing really into the whole idea of activating the entire city. So at the very south end of where the World Cup footprint will be, is the stadium, and sort of anchoring it to the north is now the Seattle Center. And then we're going to really kind of create and drive activation, revitalization through the core of the center of the city, and also through the waterfront. So we're actually going to be creating kind of a loop around the city so people can really enjoy everything our city has to offer.
Was transportation a part of this, knowing the monorail does go to Seattle Center, it does connect to downtown? Was that
Absolutely.
a factor?
It was absolutely. It was one of the big factors. We said, look, you know, one of the great things to do when you come here is to ride the monorail to the Space Needle, and you know, that connects right to Westlake, which is an area that we're keenly interested in activating. And this will be an amazing opportunity for the city.
So in terms of events that will draw people to Seattle Center, we're talking, I would imagine, like a big screen near Fisher Plaza,
For sure.
and that kind of thing on the Seattle Center campus.
Oh yeah, I think we're going to have we'll have programming of music, food. We will have hospitality areas, but we will have big screens to watch the matches.
How does Memorial Stadium factor into that? Because I'm not sure what the timeline is going to be, but they would have a soccer field.
Memorial Stadium, we're not going to be playing games out there, so in my understanding of the timeline there, it won't be ready, but that's okay. We're not going to be playing games or practicing out there or anything like that. What it really was is that the Seattle Center is ready-made. It's ready to go. We know how to secure it. We know how to host big events there. And we're really excited to work with our partners at the Seattle Center and partners in and around the community on that.
So this is a big piece of the puzzle, is it not?
It is. It's a huge piece of the puzzle, and we couldn't be more excited about that because honestly, we're thinking potentially up to 30,000 people per day running through there. There is going to be a number of things that we're going to feature, like local artists, both musical and non-musical, and so there's going to be a lot of different types of activities, different ways to enjoy the World Cup. We're going to have somewhere between 3/4 to 1 million additional visitors looking for things to do during the period of time that we're hosting the World Cup. And this gets people really logically spread around our town. And so we really thought it was a better move for us.
Does it?
And better move for the city.
Sorry to jump on
No.
you. Does this say anything about your confidence in the waterfront being done, or?
Not at all.
Yeah.
No, we're really, really excited about the waterfront. But, originally we thought we need to be at the waterfront. And then we started looking at the footprint, kind of the size of people we thought we were going to get through there. Safety was a big issue. Like, can we secure it? And it's not that it's not safe down there. It's obviously very, very safe. But it was just logistically a little bit easier to do something that's already set up for it. And so all those kind of things factored into it. We did, like I said, we will be down on the waterfront in an activation. We will drive people to the waterfront, not that we really need to, because it's really almost so spectacular. But we looked at all that.
And this is in conjunction with things, you talk about legacy in 1962, but you're also doing some other legacy projects as well at the same time.
Correct. One of the things then, what was a big driver of this idea is, one of the things we'd like to do is revitalize the Pacific Science Center. It's right next door to the Fisher Pavilion, and we thought that would be a fantastic way to celebrate children and using soccer as sort of the center of getting interest in the sciences, and the Pacific Science Center, which was such a wonderful legacy in 1962, is, most people would agree, in need of a revitalization, and when we are willing to lend a hand to that. But really the thing that really attracted us to this whole concept of like One Seattle, which is what the mayor loves to lean in on, or actually he's coined, is getting people activated through our city. And we get people activated and walking around and taking the monorail, going to Westlake. We get people through different parts of our city. That's what we're trying to go for.
And with this over here, I'm assuming that you would plan on using Climate Pledge Arena as a massive gathering place as well.
I mean, that's certainly an option. We're certainly going to be talking to the Climate Pledge Arena folks. There's a lot of stuff to discuss. We've already started that discussion, but we're really comfortable with the plan to the point where we're ready to announce. And once we set that, then a whole bunch of things sort of fall into place.
And on Pacific Science Center, what does that mean, revitalization through the World Cup?
So one of the things that we're really trying to do is re-engage the youth into the program. Using soccer and the interest in soccer for the sciences is really kind of where we're going to be leaning in on, but more to come on that. So. And
then you had mentioned you had, over 100 different submissions for posters?
Yeah, and so another part of our legacy is like we have a poster program. So we have a local artist that will become the official poster designer for the official FIFA World Cup poster that will go out to the world. We set up the invitations several weeks ago. The submissions closed on Friday, and we had about 170 registrations. They will have to submit either their proposed piece of artwork or their portfolio and a concept by October 20th. And then we will select 4 finalists, and there's cash prizes for that, and we're really excited about it.
Anything else that we're missing?
Nothing missing, but with the legacy work that we've been talking about, you and I have already started. We were really pleased a week ago. We opened up the very first indigenous mini pitch at the Puyallup Tribe of Indians Chief Leshai School with the Ray Foundation. The Seattle Sounders Ray Foundation did a wonderful job of really putting this all together, and we were all there. It was just such a heartwarming moment for all of us. In fact, Bill Sterwood, the chairman of the Puyallup Tribe of Indians, got up and announced to the whole school that soccer will now be a varsity sport for boys and girls at the Chief Leshai School. That was amazing. I really, really thought, wow, that's talk about like the legacy of building and growing our sport, and doing that on indigenous people's land is just a dream come true.
All right, so a lot of exciting stuff there from Peter Tomozawa, but there are questions about how this is all going to work with the city and getting people around and, hey, Sound Transit. Is that going to be done to get people from the east side to the west side for the events here over the course of that month? I had a chance to also talk with Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell about that. So how's this work from a city government perspective in terms of organizing this? Because obviously this is an organizing committee. The city's role is a little bit different. How's this going to work with the city?
Well, it gives us a legitimate excuse to look at a certain timeline and realize the entire world will look at the state of the city in terms of safety and cleanliness and just the feel and the vibe of the city. So this is a great opportunity for us. And again, we'll have, over 1 million people here. During the match time, we'll have a lot of people here. And so we're all excited as a city body of employees about this opportunity, and we'll rise to the occasion. We have a great local organizing committee. It's really fun working with them. So things are looking good.
So they raise a lot of money or with legacy partners and whatnot to put this event on. Is there a city contribution here? I know that question is going to come up over the next couple of years, what that impact is on the city.
Yeah, not a direct contribution. We do have staff that are working on this full time. I don't know the number of the staff, but a lot of people, it's part of their job as well, from transportation, public safety, and also of economic development, et cetera. But again, our transportation, our ecosystem there, and other components of what we do ordinarily as a city, we just have to be ready.
Speaking of transportation, a lot of people are going to be potentially staying on the east side. That Link Light Rail is not done across I-90, and there's a question of whether it'll be done in time for this event. What's your confidence level that that link across Lake Washington will be done in time for the World Cup?
Yeah. I don't want to put it in terms of percentages, but I do know that the CEO and the full Sound Transit Executive Board, including myself, are working feverishly to get it done. We realize that the clock is ticking, but once again, because of some of the engineering issues and some of the safety issues that present, we don't want to rush it. And so that's last week we had a safety discussion on some of the challenges that particular link poses, and we want to do it right as well. So safety is a key here.
So will it be done by 2025?
I don't want to make a prediction on that one, Chris. I think you'd be better pressed to ask the CEO, John Spearman, on that issue, or his engineering staff.
Last question is having the Club World Cup now in 2025 in at least 3 games and 6 games or 6 matches in 2026. What kind of impact does that have financially for the city in terms of hotel, motel, revenue taxes, and just everything that comes with that?
Yeah, we're real pleased to see that announcement come out. It gives us sort of a preview on how we're going to be ready for 2026. It'll have a phenomenal impact. Again, through our B&O taxes and the revenue that small businesses can enjoy through this kind of tourism, again, is what makes the economic wheels sort of flow. So we're looking forward to that. That's a great addition to the city next year, and again, a good sort of a good event to anticipate what's about to come the following year.
So there you go. I think what's interesting, Niko, is you didn't hear a answer there from the mayor about whether the East Link, that spot between the east side and the west side over Lake Washington, he didn't give a definitive answer there about whether that is going to be done in time.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to watch that story here because we're all about what's happening away from the pitch, right?
Yeah.
Is that going to be done in time? I think there's going to be more and more pressure on Sound Transit. Is it going to be done in time for 2025 with the FIFA Club World Cup? Is it going to be done in time for the World Cup? If it's not, we're talking about a lot of buses on the streets.
Yeah, and on streets that are already pretty jam-packed at certain times.
Especially with everybody coming back to work in the office.
Yes. We want it all, just, maybe alleviate some of it.
All right. Are you ready for the segment we like to do every week, except when we forget and skip over it? The final buzzer.
Yeah. You know what, man? This is a sentiment that I've echoed in recent weeks on this show, but I just want to remind folks that we are in a golden era of Seattle sports. And sometimes when you say that, you think about the action on the field and some of the cool things we've seen in that regard in recent years. But it's kind of what I said on the Four Corners. We've had a major event each year, a major event hopefully to come in the return of the Sonics. We've seen the more teams coming in, like the Kraken a few years ago. I mean, this is part of that golden era, right? Think about this 2020s decade. I think when we look back on it years from now, you're talking about the arrival of two of the top four, big four franchises, NHL and NBA, assuming the NBA thing goes to plan, or our plan. You're talking about these major events that we've mentioned, from the All-Star Game to the Winter Classic to the World Cup, both of them. I just think it's on every sports fan here to understand and really respect what we're seeing right now. And sometimes we get lost in that day to day. You get lost in the X's and O's of the Mariners falling short or the Seahawks losing or whatever might be going on that certain week. Let's look at abstract, big picture here. Seattle's awesome. And we've got a lot of things going on this decade. I don't want to fast forward through them. I don't want to get older, but
yeah.
I oftentimes, especially in recent months as NBA has picked up, I have thought about the idea of looking back years from now and being like, wow, that was a really, really not just cool, but impactful decade, maybe few years, whatever you want to call it, in Seattle sports that forever changed the landscape of sports in this city.
You know how I'll close it out? You just said it's awesome. You know who else is awesome?
Who else is awesome?
Bill Fesh.
Hey, Bill Fesh.
He's back in the pickleball tournament at KOMO. He's in the semifinals.
Which is amazing. Bill and his team with Todd, Bill and Todd's excellent adventure, they were eliminated, but through the grace of the pickleball gods, got back in the tournament. I still don't know how the heck that happened, but you're back in, and now you're in the Final Four. Well done, sir.
Well done, Bill.
Yeah, and well done on this show. You know what? Because I've said this often, Chris. I love the dynamic we have here. You're with the mayor. You're doing you're with Adam Silver. You're kind of doing that stuff, and I'm in the locker room and I'm in the stadiums, and we're able to put that together, that expertise together, to give insight that you really don't see, not just in Seattle, but in the sports landscape. And what's really cool about that, if you look back at the guests we've had, whether it's Sonics legends, Gary Payton, Detlef Schrempf, whether it's the decision makers here in town. We talk about Ann McCoy from WSU, Pat Chun from UW. I mean, the list goes on and on. And when you look at those sides of the spectrum, I hope that folks subscribe wherever they get their favorite platform for podcasts. I hope they check it out on the KOMO News YouTube page, because this is really unique. And my friend, you know this, but I'm just letting the folks out there know, as we inch closer and get even more news about the Sonics, I'm sure you'll be back in New York City at some point. This is even going to be even more fun and even more right on the edge, the latest information on the stories that matter most, or at least what's going to make the sports stories of tomorrow in Seattle. That's why I love the show so much.
So you're saying people should subscribe or smash that like button.
Like it. David Lee, take us out.
You've been listening to Inside the Arena with Niko and Chris. Please subscribe on your favorite platform. Until next time.